Gender in everyday life. As the It is very often said that there is no such thing as a social reality. Further, the question is asked, what are social constructions? Rejecting intrinsically good or bad categories. These are described as social constructions. In other words, morality is the acquired vision of a society. How is the vision of a society or its social construction shaped? It is shaped automatically. Is it culture specific? Every day we observe various objects experiencing several events and related with the various social interactions. These entire phenomena that are experienced individually help to develop a image of society, the world. Indeed, we filter everything that happens to us every day through the lens or screen of our understanding of our world and society. This everyday sense of the world or things forms the basis of social reality or construction of social reality. In this sense, social construction is a social process in which both the individuals and other social institutions and practices are intrinsically related. It is also influenced, shaped, and dominated by the interest of a particular group or class of people. In this sense, culture, norms, ideologies, and the values of the dominant groups are used to justify and sustain a particular form of social construction. Hence, social construction through which we understand everyday life try to classify people on the basis of caste, class, religion, community, kinship, gender, and so on. The classification of people is the consequences of the social construction. Sex and gender. Understanding of the social construction of gender starts with explaining two concepts, that is, gender and sex. These two terms bear different meanings as concepts. Gender refers to differences, hierarchies, ranking which exist between female and male. It explains cultural constructions related with the various roles that are played by woman and man in the society. Further, gender analyzes the aspect of shaping women's behavior according to the normative order of the society. Gender as the conceptual tool is used to analyze the structural relationships of inequality existing between women and men. This inequality gets reflected in the family and household, religion, caste, labor market, education, ecology, scientific establishments, and political institutions. Sex, on the other hand, refers to the biological difference between male and female, which remains same across time and place. Gender can therefore be defined as a notion that offers a set of frameworks within which the social and the ideological construction and representation of the differences between the sexes are explained. Gender socialization is a process through which children come to acquire the position of a social well being by identifying themselves with different gender roles and conform with socially appropriate behaviors and attributes as the females and the males. Women's identification with universally accepted mothering role, their subjective experience as embodiment of love, care, support, and men's proximity with public domain characterized by the impersonal and professional nature are the products of socio-cultural constructions, femininity and masculinity. Social expectations from women as natural mothers, wives, daughters, and homeworks are not only exist at the patriarchal construction but also operate in the material environment of the society. Some feminist geographers have argued that space and gender are socially constructed in women's bodies. The activities and mobility are limited to certain physical tattoos and structure. For instance, home is thought to be constructed through women's gender roles at the same time restricts women access to freedom and mobility. For instance, women middle class who work outside the household and travel at the night to work in call centers often meet with the sexual harassment, rape, and murder. This is a different discourse on the theory of the feminization of labor, which shows how time, space of call center industries are also gendered in nature. Sex connects the individual with her his sex categorization and eventually restricts the individual with the social notion of femininity and masculinity. This process of gender socialization is enabling the person to maintain her his sex categorization at societal level. Cultural construction of gender. Gender is a complex phenomenon which is socially constructed and culturally determined. Culture can be described as a network of relationship that attaches meaning to the pattern of living of a particular community and group. Culture covers almost every facet of life, including organization of production, structure of family and other institution, ideologies and normative patterns of the society, and nature of interactions or relations. Cultural construction of gender talks about the construction of masculinity and femininity in the context of socialization. That is, the individual acquires the gendered bodies of the being feminine or masculine in the course of social development. The construction of femininity and masculinity is also shaped by the institution of family, economic, political, and religious organization. Gender construction in relation to culture can be explained through the following five. Gender construction supports the system of dominance. Gender categories are never neutral nor they are equal. Gender as a system of unequal relationships between women and men gets manifested in spheres of work, production processes, access to resources, and power, except in the specific gender roles, sex segregation in the labor market. Gender construction vis-a-vis individual expression of gender. Feminist psychoanalysis asserts that gender cannot be seen as an exclusively cultural, linguistic, and political construction. Therefore, we need to make a distinction between perspective construction of gender and individual reflection of these construction. Perspective construction of gender refers to those images which are socially, historically, culturally determined. For example, socializing a girl child to become a homemaker in future is deep rooted attitude in a society and manifested through dress code, appropriate conduct, and women's engagement in caregiving or nurturing activities. Individuals' inflections are made by the interaction of an individual psyche with the socio-political or culture or the historical norms. For example, if a boy girl undergoes sex reassignment surgery, there may be a couple of questions that need analysis, such as how does society respond to variations in an individual's expression of gender identity? To whom extent do members of society internalize various gender roles and behaviors? This point brings us a discussion of doing gender as a concept. Doing gender involves a complex set of socially governed perceptual interaction and the micropolitical activities that cast a particular action as an expression of masculine or the feminine nature. Therefore, gender is inherent to social situation, that is, it is both product of and produced by the social arrangements. The newborn only carries a sex identity that is imposed upon the individual by the society, eventually through continuous interaction with the parents or primary caretaker. The infant accomplishes gender identity. Doing gender is a process that legitimizes the fundamental gender division in the society. We have the case of Agnes, a transsexual boy. West and Zimmerman discuss the three analytical categories such as sex, sex category, and gender to understand the notion of doing gender. Garfinkel's case study of Agnes, a transsexual boy, would be an apt example for understanding gender construction. Agnes adopted a female identity at the age of 17. Agnes. Yeah, and underwent sex reassignment surgery some years later to understand gender consider. She possessed male genitals and acquired a project to herself as a woman. She was obliged to learn the feminine features and analyze the conception of femininity within the socially structured situation. She did not possess the socially agreed attributes of the biological category to be classified as a female sex. More central to this argument is Castle and the McCain's position that is the biological criterion is hidden from the public perception and the individual continues to behave according to the socially agreed criteria of male or female. Male and female are the products of the gender attribution processes and form an important part of gender recognition activities. For example, if a child sees a picture of a person with suit and tie, immediately the child connects the picture with the image of a man. The sex category is socially situated and acquired by the individual to everyday interaction. People perceive the activity of an individual and reduce the category of sex. In this context, gender is understood to be the product of culture and society. It is referred Western the Zimmerman. Garfinkel's case study of Agnes. Gender socialization. Socialization is a process by which a child transforms into a social well-being by adhering to social values, norms, and socially desired behavior. Sex role sex socialization is a means to women oppression in larger context. Stanley and the Wise argue that sex role is often understood as gender role. Stanley and Wise. Expressing attributes of femininity or masculinity, family as an institution supports internalizing gender socialization and gender roles across cultures. Mother or primary caretaker responds differently to the child on the basis of sex categorization. The different attitude includes touching, caring, and ideas about the autonomy of the boys in absence of the autonomy of the girls. The more parents display differential behavior, like exposing children to specific types of boy, exposing to various books where pictures identify the role of mother in kitchen, projection of the gender roles and behavior in televisions, more the child will express gender stereotypes in daily life. Family and parents are seen primary agencies through which gender stereotypes are communicated to the children. Near the construction of a girl child. The construction of a girl child discusses the process of socializing a girl child in patrilineal and the patriarchal societies like India. Patrilineal and patriarchal. The girl faces in the process of socializing herself of the female. Doop 2001 refers to the process of socialization as a form of gender socialization in which women and men are produced as gendered subjects. These gender subjects are created through the medium of language, rituals, ceremonies, and practices. And in Indian families, the notion of gender difference begins with the sphere of reproduction. Both mother and father share different roles in relation to procreation. It is culturally considered that the father is the provider of the seed and mother symbolizes with earth who receives the seed and nurture it. These role differences are culturally imagined and continued through family, marriage, and kinship. Therefore, family and kinship are central to the understanding of gender socialization. The construction of femininity is a continuous and the complex process and is conveyed through language, proverbs, and ritual. The context of natal home for both married and unmarried daughter is widely used in the form of proverbs in the process of socialization. The desire for a boy child is explicit in the day to day conversation in forms of speech, saying, for instance, parents who are having only daughters are often perceived in a situation where the future is black as they are not having any support. Similarly, the parental home is always referred to as a temporary shelter for girls. Therefore, girls grow up with the notion of having their own home in future after marriage. Proverbs and rituals give the realization of this inevitable fact of transferring the girl's membership from her natal home to the home of her husband. Diouf documented some of the proverbs spoken in various parts of India. In Odisha, there is a saying that equates daughter with the ghee. The meaning of a proverb that is both are valuable, however, both start to stink if not dispose of in right time. Similarly, there are festivals like Durga Puja and the daughter with ghee. Similarly, at Durga Puja and Gauri Puja, we reiterate the idea of the home coming in the context of the goddess, which convey the messages to the young girls for the reality to leave their mother's home and that will be invited to the natal home in these festivals. The conception of a girl child begins with the feeling of getting temporary membership at the parental place. Temporary member at parental place. and the inevitability of the learning some of the ideal feminine behavior in due course. The process of socialization of the girl child involves cultural construction of femininity at the pre-pubertal and the post-pubertal phases. The importance of pre-pubertal purity amongst the girls have been given special recognition in rituals, various regions of India like Maharashtra, West Bengal, Karnataka, and other parts as well. We have case analysis in Navratri, the custom of worshipping and feeding virgin girls are widely practiced across India. One of the 8 days of the festival, pre-pubertal girls are invited for worship and food. The girls represent Mother Goddess and they were worship and offer food along with the other gifts as a part of the ritual. Points can be input for the gender analysis include in this festival the forms assigned to the girls are essentially feminine in nature. That is, the consciousness of the family is constructed through their dressing style and the form the gifts of the offer to them. A sharp distinction can be made between the phase of pre-puberty and post-puberty, and consequently there is a sensory senses of the purity and sacredness associated with the pre-pubertal phase of women's lives. The culture of femininity symbolized in these rituals and the sense of feminine feature is systematically built into the demands of the girl child. The onset of the puberty is a phase which is marked by changes and transformation in a woman's life. This phase is associated with the several pubertal rituals, dietary perception, and the seclusion of the girls for certain days, and these are practiced widely across India. These pubertal rituals are expressing the significance of maintaining sexual purity for girls in the context of marriage and motherhood. Sex segregation is the mostly observed and studied within occupational and the economic structure, which reflects the woman entering into a particular kind of profession in the regime of any economic reform. Put the or the practice of the female seclusion is widely followed across countries and communities, and it prescribes obvious gender segregation in rural tasks and activities. Purda. In Bangladesh, the practice of the female seclusion operated according to the inside outside divide Kabir 1990. The author says a poor woman in Bangladesh is subjected to a twofold process of stereotyping. Poor women are perceived to be passive and vulnerable, yet they are regarded as the potential target groups of our development. These images of women have been reinforced through cultural constructions like women are always in need of the male protection for their survival. For example, the notion of the inside outside divide has curtailed women's freedom to move beyond the premises of the household. Therefore, they perform activities within the sphere of domesticity. In the labor market, there is a wide division between the men and women in terms of differential wages. Access to the MGN McGinrix job card. Nature of work and the amount of work. Traditionally, women who have been perceived to be dependent as far as employment is concerned. For instance, within the family, women who have ancestral sources through their male counterparts. Similarly, women in the labor market go through the male channels in assessing wage and the other job opportunities. Majority of women are concentrated in the unorganized sector. In the case of unorganized sector, 95.7% of females are concentrated in the sector as compared to 89% of male workers. There is a segregation on the basis of gender within the labor market, and this division has led to rising socioeconomic insecurities for women working in the unorganized and the private sectors. The author indicated that the states having low female status are into low paid and the hazardous employment. Similarly, women's participation in the field of political and the technical employment is very low. In the agriculture sector, women have substantial contribution. However, they are mostly employed as marginal workers. In agriculture, there is a segregation with regard to nature of work assigned to women and men. In most of the states in India, men are engaged in plowing and irrigation related activities. Women have exclusively engaged in tasks like sowing, nurturing of plants, and harvesting. It is seen that men are mostly associated with the marketing operations of the agriculture produce. Marketing operations of the agricultural produce and the control of resource and surplus is considered to be the domain of men. Further, the role of women as primary caretaker made them negotiating with the flexible and the temporary jobs. As rightly pointed out, married women are always been considered as a reserve army which would not be kept outside the labor market to be used during labor crisis. Women have no formal contract as employees and are exposed to poor safety conditions and other vulnerabilities. Women as a workforce area of the primary importance of the global economy and at the same time devoid of health and the labor protection. Gender relations are situated within the sexual division of labor and often created gender conflict. For instance, African agriculture is often perceived to be female system of farming. Within agriculture, the sphere of work is divided along gender lines. In Africa, the separation of the sphere of work between women and men implies a social exchange of labor between women and men. However, women's sphere of work is surrounded by a complex set of claims and obligations. As Whitehead argued, two different kinds of social environment govern women's economic activity in Africa. Resources like land and produce were shared with her children, husband, and other family members. Women have the obligation to work for their husbands and other family members, but there is no direct return benefit received by a woman in exchange of her labor. Women's labor is constructed within the social environment of rights and obligation. Women's work in husband's field is conceptualized under her general rights to welfare and maintenance as a household member. Bostrup's book on women's role in economic development was widely acknowledged within the field of women's work. Bostrup discussed two systems of farming, such as female system vis-a-vis a male system of farming practiced in the countries of Africa and Asia, respectively. African farming exhibits a trend toward female system of farming. It's about family labor, which higher percentage of female labor force participation, women assessing freedom and the mobility, high bride price and reference was less featured. The pro culture of Asian farming exhibits a trend towards male system of the farming characterized by the higher participation of male wage labor, indicating women's exclusion from the farming. This practice of the woman's seclusion from agriculture was reproduced through social norms such as women's lack of inheritance right, dowry system of son preference, increasing rate of female mortality, resulting into adverse sex ratio in the population. The model explicitly discloses the notion of sexual division of labor in the context of agriculture. To begin with, the author describes African farming as a female system of farming. Female system of farming. Clearly relegated to periphery in the wake of modernization and economic development. As Wired argued to show how agriculture is gendered in the nature, the cash crop sector is managed by the men folk, and the food crop is through managed by the women's labor. This model emphasizes the feminine nature of subsistence farming and the woman's inability to participate in the modern farming sector in the African context. However, this framework was criticized on the ground that it completely neglected women's contribution in modern food production. Whitehead argues to meet the increasing cash needs of the African households. Women have significantly contributed in the family labor for cash cropping or the increased trading. Work is often understood to be physical and mental labor. Hochschild, cited by the Redford and Honor, count the term emotional labor. Hochschild, emotional labor. That reflects a particular kind of work associated with the care and nurture. Emotional labor is associated with the female occupation, both in the domain of family and worksphere, therefore needs to be accepted as a particular form of skill to be paid in future within family. Women's unpaid work is described as a labor of love that has been earned, remunerated, however accountable under patriarchy. Labor of love, have you many children? The doctor asked. God has not to be kind to me. Of 15 born, only 9 live. Does the wife work? No, she stays at home. I will see how she does spend her doctor. She is for in the morning, fetches water, wood work, the fire goes. When she goes to the river, after she goes down to the corner, you may have no, she brings them none. She has nothing to do. Kinship was a relationship between individuals who share a genealogical origin. Genealogical origin through biological, cultural, historical descent. Honor killing is the killing of a member of family or social group by other member due to belief of the perpetrators that the victim has brought dishonor upon the family community. Honor killing are directed mostly against women and the girls.